What is up guys, Patrick Tintachono Jr. here, and today we have a tutorial. So I will be teaching you something that is fundamental in photography, which is shooting in manual. Now I know a lot of photographers sometimes may have an argument to say you are not really a photographer if you don't know how to shoot in manual, but quite frankly I don't think that really is the case. I mean, you can be a photographer without knowing how to shoot in manual, but learning how to shoot in manual just helps you best understand the device that you're working with, and to achieve certain types of pictures you do need to learn how to shoot in manual. But anyway, that's just an argument that I've heard from time to time, and I just thought I could share that with you. But quite frankly, I don't think that you need to be someone who knows how to shoot in manual to actually be a photographer. I mean, and yeah, but still, this is a great tutorial for us to learn just how to shoot in manual. So if you want to learn how to shoot in manual, if you just bought a DSLR, then stick around, watch this video, and check out just what I have to teach you. So let's get right into it. There are three things that you're going to learn today about shooting in manual, and that's just three settings of shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. So let's start from the top with shutter speed. Now I'm giving this tutorial working with a Canon DSLR or 600D and using images from Canon cameras because that's what I use. But once you learn how to shoot in manual mode, the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO values are there across all devices. Whether you're using a smartphone, whether you use a DSLR, you will still be able to be working with the same kind of effects that changing these settings will have. So let's start with shutter speed. Shutter speed is essentially the speed at which the shutter that sits on top of your sensor moves across it. Now in cameras these days that work electronically, you have what is called a digital sensor that is sitting in the back of your camera, and then in front of that sensor, the sensor is what actually captures the image. Now in front of that sensor there are what are called shutter curtains, and these little curtains sit right in front of your sensor, covering it. Now when you change your settings on your camera to say a different value for shutter speed, if you say 1/200th of a second, then that means that the shutter will move at 1/200th of a second across your sensor to expose it for that amount of time. If you put it at 3 seconds, your shutter will open and stay open for 3 seconds and then close over your sensor, and that's essentially just what shutter speed is. And now let's move on to aperture. Now aperture is the value of just how wide the little aperture blades open in your lens. Now the shutter curtains sit right in front of your sensor, but the aperture in DSLR cameras is actually found in the lens itself. So the aperture is actually just a little hole that is made by some aperture blades, and when you open and close this hole, you allow different amounts of light to get into the eye, kind of like how the pupil of an eye works. So for aperture values, the lower the value, the wider your aperture goes, and wider apertures are best for low light situations, and these are what are called fast lenses. When your lens has a low aperture value, it's considered a fast lens because it allows more light into the camera, and the camera is able to focus much quicker using that. So your aperture value, if you have a lower aperture value, you will get more light into the camera. If you have a higher aperture value, you will get much less light into the camera. So the third thing that we're going to talk about is the ISO on your camera, and essentially what ISO is just increasing and decreasing the sensitivity of your sensor to light. So there are values between 100 and some go as far as to 25,000, and I've heard crazier values than that, but on my camera I can shoot from 100 ISO to about 6,400 ISO. So this is just essentially just changing the sensitivity of light on your sensor. Now for the ISO value, you have to be a bit careful because there's a certain native value in which your camera should work. So like for my camera, I know that if I'm shooting between 100 and about 400 or 800 ISO, I'll take my pictures and they'll come out very sharp and not have what is called digital noise. And I'll show you some pictures that have digital noise and others that don't, so that you just understand. So you need to know that certain cameras will allow you to only shoot within a certain range without getting digital noise, while others will give you a much wider range to be able to shoot and still not have digital noise. But essentially what ISO is just changing the sensitivity of the sensor in your camera. So once you learn these values, you will be able to expose your images well, and depending in different situations, you will be able to avoid things like motion blur and, you know, just little things like that, just because you understand that, oh, if I change the shutter speed value and make it too low, I will get motion blur. Then you will be able to adjust that and, you know, have a well exposed image that does not have motion blur and stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. And after this video, you pretty much know how to shoot in manual, and you are a professional photographer if you consider shooting in manual professional photography. So yeah, anyway, thanks guys for watching this video. Like it if you like it, just like it if you don't, and just, you know, share it with your friends if you want to have other people just learn more about photography. And leave a comment below if there's anything else that you want to know about photography, and I'll try and make my next video about that. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and yeah, keep supporting this work, and yeah, until the next one, keep shooting.